years. I have been Emma's advisor for this honors project, and it's been wonderful. I've just enjoyed working with Emma so much, and I know how passionate she is about sign language education, and I know she's so excited to take these types of lessons to her student teaching, in right after graduation. Battle Creek, 4th grade. I'm sure everybody knows that, but I just found out it's very exciting. So I think it's going to be just great, and I know that you can use lots of these ideas in your student teaching. It's exciting. So I'm super excited to introduce Emma, who's been doing a great project about sign language education and what it can mean for American education, things like that. This for you, ma'am. There you go. Congratulations, you've been doing a wonderful job, and I can't wait for this presentation.
Alrighty, so welcome everyone. Today I will be talking about sign language and education. So let's get started. We communicate on a daily basis, whether it's communicating through text message to a friend, through our coworkers, or interactions with people on a daily basis. But there are 4 types of communication. First is verbal communication. So this is communication which occurs through orally, or when someone's speaking to someone else. And then the second is nonverbal. So that's anything communicated through like facial expressions or through a gesture, changing of posture, physical touch, eye contact, that sort of thing. And then written communication is anything communicated through words. So that can be through like a letter, through cards, through email. And then visual is anything visually shown, so through images and videos and that sort of thing. Sign language can be a mix of between nonverbal and visual communication. Visual communication because as people are signing, they're reading the sign that you're assigning to them. And then nonverbal because nobody's sort of using sign language. And sign language is, the definition of sign language is a means of communication using bodily movements such as hands, arms, and it is used when spoken communication is impossible or undesirable. So today we will talk about the different versions of sign language as well as the history and how it's come from the United Kingdom over to the United States, as well as cochlear implants and its effect on the language. And then what are the benefits to the individual as well as the classroom, and then what are some ways we can use it in the classroom. So first up, the different versions of sign language. There are numerous types, and the really unique thing is there's not one universal sign language. So each different culture and community can have a different form or version of it. So there are over 300 different sign language that is used by 72 million people worldwide. Why are there so many different languages, you might ask? This is due to the different, each country has their own version as well as different dialects. So sign language in the United States is called ASL, or American Sign Language, whereas sign language in the United Kingdom is BSL, which is British Sign Language. So some of the signs may differ between the different sign languages. One sign that's kind of different, so if you were communicating with someone from the United Kingdom and you guys are talking about your mom, the American Sign Language sign for that is mom is this, so touching your chin twice with the thumb of your hand, whereas in the United Kingdom, the sign for mom would be the letter N, and then you touch your palm twice with your hand. So that's something cool. Sign language is not a word for Sign language is not a word-for-word translation of the language. So we'll get back to it since it's now working. Technology's being friendly with us now. So as I was saying, sign language is not a word-for-word translation from spoken English. It has its own form, rules of grammar, syntax, word formation, and word order. So in English, to ask a question, you might change your pitch or tone, whereas in sign language, you might raise your eyebrows or you tilt your body forward just to say, ask a question to someone. So sign language is vast and ever-changing, and it's unique to every region you may go to, just like any other language around the world. Okay, so the history of sign language now. So it did not start in the United States. It first started in the 1500s with Girone Cardiono. He started it in Italy. He was a mathematician and physician. He was the first to identify that learning doesn't require hearing. And so people were able to be educated using written words. And also in the 1500s, Juan Pablo de Bonet was inspired, and he used writing, reading, and speech reading to teach those who were unable to speak. And he created the manual alphabet. This was used to educate the deaf and hard of hearing, and this was the first recognized alphabet in deaf history. He used different hand shapes which corresponded to different parts of speech or different letters in the alphabet. And then in 1750, organized deaf education was established by Abu de Lepe, and he established the first public free deaf school called the National Institute for Deaf and Mutes in France. Dr. Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet had a neighbor who had a daughter that was deaf, and he wanted to teach her so he went to Europe in search of answers, and he met the successor of Abby, and he observed and studied at the Institute, as well as after he had observed and learned from the institution, he went back to America, came back, and he brought a few instructors back, as well as all of the information he learned, to then create his own school in America. And then he established the School of the Deaf in Hartford, Connecticut in 1817, and this was the first public and free deaf school in the United States. Students who came to the school brought not only their own signs that they learned at home, but as well as the signs that he learned from the French Sign Language, FSL, in France. And the mix between the home signs that students brought, as well as the French Sign Language, this was used to create American Sign Language, as we use today. In 1861, Tom Gallaudet's youngest son, Edward, wanted to have a higher education for deaf and hard of hearing people. So he wanted to establish a deaf college, and so this was established in 1861. Abraham Lincoln was the one to kind of grant them access to create that school. And this was the first college for deaf and hard of hearing students. The name changed from Gallaudet College to Gallaudet University in 1986. Back in 1861, there was heated debate over oralism. And oralism is the system of teaching deaf people to communicate using speech and lip reading rather than using sign language. They felt that sign language was separating people, and so they wanted everyone to move towards oralism and just speaking rather than using sign language. So from 1867 to 1960, the community changed from using sign language to oralism, and this had some impacts to the language. And then in 1860, the National Association of the Deaf was established, and it started the fight for sign language and making sure that people would use sign language because the oralism is having negative effects on the community as well as the people who were using it. They fought for the use of sign language instead of the oralism methods, and this kind of the nail in the coffin for oralism was the published dissertation from William Stokey, and this proved that ASL was a genuine language rather than just something people were using to communicate. So both oral and sign language communication are used today, and it's the oral form of it is mainly just speaking when signing, not forcing people to learn how to speak, which is the kind of the difference between oral and sign. The debate has started up again, but this debate between whether to use cochlear implants or not, that is kind of the big debate currently with deaf and hard of hearing people. Parents believe that they should have their children have cochlear implants, so that way they can be able to hear and communicate with everyone around them environment. In the next section, we'll kind of talk about cochlear implants and kind of what they are and what the impacts of them are as well. So, Nebraska, New Hampshire, and Nevada are the 3 schools in the United States that do not have residential schools serving deaf students. Deaf students can go to the residential schools to learn, or they can learn in public school as well through the use of an interpreter. And so the interpreter would follow them around the day and sign for any of the teachers saying, as well as their peers who saying and communicating throughout the day. There has been a long struggle and fight to be recognized as a national language, and so as you can see through the history that this has been true. Next are cochlear implants. So what are they? These help with hearing for specifically deaf people. Hard of hearing, if a person is hard of hearing, they will use hearing aids rather than cochlear implants. There are 2 parts of the device. We have an internal device and an external device. The internal device is placed surgically under the skin, and the external is attached to the outside of the skull near kind of the ear, which you can kind of see in the picture. There are kind of 4 parts to it: the microphone, speech processor, the transmitter, electrode array. So the microphone is used to pick up all the sounds in the surrounding environment, and then the speech processor kind of picks up those sounds and like arranges them to like form. So if you're hearing a sentence coming out of my mouth, the microphone would pick up that sentence, and the speech processor would organize the sentence to make sure it sounds like a sentence. And then that would be then sent to the transmitter, which would receive it and send the signal, convert it into electric impulses, and that would be sent to the electrode array, which collects the impulses and then sends them to the auditory nerve, so then people are then able to hear. The hard thing with cochlear implants is deaf people have to relearn or learn sounds because they've never heard anything before. They have to then relearn what is going on, what the knock on a door is, where the doorbell is. So they have a really harder time understanding kind of the different sounds that happen on a daily basis. So for cochlear implants, the difference between cochlear implants and hearing aids kind of amplify sounds that are going around for someone who's hard of hearing, whereas cochlear implants directly go around the damaged part of the ear, so then people are able to hear sounds. Many people who do end up getting cochlear implants use a mix between ASL and the implant to help them hear and communicate with everyone around them. This is why I feel like people should learn sign language so they can communicate with everyone, no matter if they have a cochlear implant or not. So some benefits to the individual choosing to learn sign language. Analytical thinking is improved when you learn sign language or another language. Multitasking is also enhanced. The brain is busy encoding and decoding the language that you are hearing, and then your brain translates it and then comes up with an answer to then send to your voice to then speak the language, or sign language in case of sign language. Learning a new language can delay the onset of dementia by 4 to 5 years, so that's another benefit to learning a language, specifically even sign language. The big thing with learning a new language, even sign language, is you can open your communication skills, so you can communicate with a whole different group of people that you've never been able to communicate with before. It also allows you to become bimodal. So bimodal is when someone knows at least one spoken language as well as a sign language. So that can be really important because if you know 2 languages, you can't speak both spoken languages at the same time. But with sign language, you can both speak it and sign it at the same time. So bimodal makes you a little bit more easier to understand with everyone. So the benefits to the classroom. As I was saying, it opens communication with every student. So you can communicate with students who have disabilities, who have autism or Down syndrome, with people who are deaf or hard of hearing. You can communicate with everyone. It opens the communication. Students with disabilities may experience language delays, language impairment, or absence of speech. So learning sign language and using sign language in the classroom opens you up to be able to communicate with them, as well as create an outlet for them to share their thoughts and feelings, kind of bridging the connection between you and your students. Sign language provides a visual language which allows students that are diagnosed with autism have an easier way to communicate. Students who have autism have a harder time processing spoken information, so it's easier to understand it through sign language rather than speaking it. And then sign language supports the development of speaking skills in children with Down syndrome because it facilitates language acquisition and communication with them. Another way benefit in the classroom to use it is brain boosters. So when you use sign language, you're using both sides of your brain. The right side of your brain is used for your visual aspect. So when you see a sign being signed, your brain will take that and then send it to the left side, which processes that and then allows you to be able to understand what's being signed or spoken about. So both of your brain is working together with the use of sign language. It also allows you to become better at decoding because your brain is working out the sign and translating it and then coming up with a sign to respond back to it. Another benefit to using sign language in the classroom is multisensory learning. So multisensory learning is the method of teaching which involves different senses so to help students learn. So the senses include visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile. Learning with more than one sense helps students remember and be able to stick the information in their schema. So the schema is kind of like your file organization in your brain, kind of helps you remember what is what, I guess, if that makes sense. And it helps you to make connections with your schema as well. So those are kind of the important things about multisensory learning. And sign language is a form of kinesthetic and visual learning. So kinesthetic learning is students learning through physical movement. So when you are signing, you are using your hands to create the signs. And then visual learning is where students learn through visuals. So through when you sign your name or something, that's students will see that and that will be something, a visual form of learning as well. So what are some ways we can use this in the classroom? I have about 5 ways that I've done research on of ways we can use it in the classroom. The first way is classroom management. So sign language can build a strong community in the classroom because if you are the only classroom in the building who's using sign language, students are kind of proud that they're kind of different than everyone else, and so that can kind of build that stronger community, as well as open communication, so students can feel welcoming and feel comfortable speaking in your classroom. So if you have a student who is hard of hearing or deaf, they feel more confident and comfortable in the classroom because you are using sign language, etc. Another form of classroom management that sign language can kind of help with is correcting students without drawing attention to them. So like if you are speaking or teaching a lesson or something, and you see students off task, you can like sign to them and they can be able to fix their mistake without even saying, hey, get back on task type thing. And then another kind of classroom management thing that you can use is like if a student needs to go to the bathroom or something, they can hold up the sign language bar on their hand and then you can sign yes or no, and then they can just go without even missing or stopping and pausing instruction to reply to the student, which is really nice. Another way to use it is finger spelling. So you can use the alphabet, the ASL alphabet throughout your classroom. This can help with, specifically in the younger grades, when they are learning to recognize the letters and the sounds that each letter makes. So finger spelling is the hand shapes used to represent the letters of the alphabet. This will help kind of students recall what the letter is, or the sound that the letter makes when they use sign language to finger spell with it. This can improve vocabulary, spelling, and reading. Another way you can use kind of finger spelling in the classroom is like if you have a multiple choice question or something, and you can have students reply with A, B, C, or D, and then hold it up, and then you can kind of to see where everyone is at with the answer to the question, whether they're understanding the content or not. You can also use it to teach math facts. So when students are learning their math facts, you can have them sign the numbers on their hands to kind of help them recall and remember the different math facts. Or if you have a problem on the board, you can have, say, sign me the answer, so then have students sign the answer back to you. Another way that you can use sign language in the classroom is for school safety. So if there's a lockdown happening or something, you can communicate using your hands and without even speaking during those lockdown drills. So that kind of helps keep the room quiet, as well as you can stay quiet and safe when the school is in lockdown and students are you're still able to communicate with your students rather than just constantly those drills or even those case scenario situations. Another way you can use it is through peer interactions. So sign language can really increase your interaction between peers. Students will feel more confident and willing to talk to their peers. And peer interaction is really a key in children's development because it helps them develop language and cognitive and social skills. And so sign language kind of opens the door to them to communicate with their classmates. Even those students who are deaf or hard of hearing or have those disabilities, they are able to communicate with each other. So, to wrap up, we learned today the different versions of sign language, as well as the history and benefits to the individual in the classroom. And we also kind of explored the different ways we could use it in the classroom if you would decide to. So I hope this encourages you to learn sign language as well as find ways to use it in your own classroom. Do you guys have any questions?